Hello, my name is Kiriath, and today we are going to take a look at the Horus Heresy Character Series once again, except we are not going to rank the Primarchs this time, because we've already done that. Instead, we are going to look at the non-Primarch models from the Character Series. This time round, we are going in descending order, rather than ascending order. So we're starting out with the best, and going down to the worst. And believe me, the gap between the best and the worst, in my opinion, is absolutely massive. We're going to, of course, start with Sevatar, first captain of the Light Lords, because he is my favourite non-Primarch model in the character series. Easily. Hands down. The first time I read a description of the Night Lords, the first time I kind of got a glimpse of them through just mere words on a page, this is literally what I imagined. Like, this was... When they showed this model off the first time, I was like, that is what the Night Lords look like. That is a perfect representation of that, I was going to say, of that Legion. It is that Legion, but of course going into 40k, they're still as mental as they were before, still covered in skin and weird stuff all over their armour, still got the lightning motif. This is what I imagined. And Sevatar is just perfect. Absolutely perfect. The changes to the armour is really cool. The trophies that he's got, I like the old wing trophy there. It's a nice touch, that. The flayed skin. The helmet is perfect. It's terrifying. It's still got the bat wings, but they're not like cartoony like nonsense that... To be honest, some Night Lord stuff does suffer a bit from... you're looking a bit cartoon villain there. Sevatar doesn't look cartoon villain. He just looks like an absolute psychopath murderer, which is exactly what you want. I feel like it's well proportioned. The detail is nice. It's just so perfectly representative of the Night Lords, and I just cannot get enough of this model. It looks so good. You can get a bit of a bit of a better feel for some of the detail without the paint job. And yeah, it just works. It just works so well. It looks so good. It looks so good. It's my favourite. It's my favourite straight off the bat. My favourite. Not far behind, in fairness, is Zardulaiak and the Blade Slaves. This is a quality set of models. I think the Blade Slaves are some of the best representation of like possessed Marines you can possibly ask for. They are hulking and threatening, like the swelling around like the arms on this one, like with the blade that grows out of its melee weapon, and yeah, it's creepy. It's weird. There's a pretty good element of body horror going on there, with the flesh like exploding out of the armor, creating this awful bone sword that he's not even holding. It's just part of his arm. It's creepy in the best way. They do look really good. They're such good sculpts is the thing. They're just so well done. I mean, Zardulaiak himself, I really like him. I really like this model. There is something otherworldly. There is something you just know evil when you see it. And that looks pretty damn evil. Also, I will say with the overall nature of the character series for the Horus Heresy, yes, Wordbearers of course have the Gal Vorbak. They've got the the Marigal Tainted Dreadnought. Those models, things like these Blade Slaves and Zardulaiak, stand out so heavily from everything else. They are so obviously corrupted by chaos, and it makes such a good contrast from what is otherwise fairly clean everywhere else. I mean, even those other legions that we know are fighting for chaos, that have that seed within them, they are not outwardly corrupted. They don't look full-on, like, chaos worshippers, even the ones who are. The contrast between the vast majority of the Horus Heresy stuff and, like, Zardiolayak and the Gal Vorbak and the Blade Slaves and the Margaret, like, it's such a massive contrast, and it works super well. Also, he has one of the coolest helmets. I absolutely love the helmet on this guy. It's just so creepy and weird and insectoid, and like, you look at it and you're like, how does he see out of that? And as soon as you think, how does he see out of that, the immediate assumption is, oh, it's probably, like, actually part of his face now. That's awful. It's so good. So good. Next up, we have Garrow. I mean, I'll be honest, a lot of my like for this model is a like for Garrow himself. The model, I think, is solid. The model's decent. But how do you not like your boy, Garrow, with Libertas? How do you not like him? He's one of the best characters. I feel like they could have really... I'll be honest. With this one, this is entirely, like... I do like the model a lot. I like the eagle on the chest plate. That's again, something that stands out quite heavily. That's a very unique and individual thing. I do like the model a lot. But I feel like they could have released pretty much anything with his name on it, and I would have gone, solid. It's my boy. He's there. Nice. I'll take it. Like, yeah. Helpfully, it is a decent model, though. He looks imposing. He looks. I don't know. Like, there's a serious amount of weight to this model. He looks like a lot more heavily armored somehow, which I can't really put my finger on why. Obviously, the massive eagle on the chest is no doubt contributing to that quite heavily, but there is something kind of... Oh, what is the word? Like, inexorable about him. Like, once he sets his mind to something, that's it. That's what's going to happen. This model really kind of gives that feel to me. The extra ornamentation on the greaves is nice, and on the shoulder pads as well. Yeah, it's pretty solid. We couldn't go too far down the rankings without Eidolon, obviously. Mostly because actually I do really like this model. It's so fancy and over the top, and the hair is... Yeah, I realised the other day, it's not even that he's got, like, a really long mohawk that is, like, draped to the side. It's just shaved. Like, half of his head is shaved and the other half isn't, which I think is probably worse. But I really like him. There is something regal about the model. Like, the pose is helping a lot with that. The very ostentatious nature of the armour is perfect for Emperor's Children. The Thunderhammer being an eagle's claw is so over the top. It's pretty perfect. It is pretty perfect for the Emperor's Children. But there's also... I feel like they very... I don't know who sculpted this one, but they very much captured sneering arrogance, I think is the only way to put it. He looks like he thinks he's superior. Whether he is or not, he looks like he is just looking down on literally everybody else. And it's so perfect for that Legion. And I really do think that was an intentional thing. I don't think they sat down and went, oh, actually, that's worked okay. It feels like an aimed for thing. Like, it just embodies Eidolon so well. And, of course, he does come with a helmet, which I like. I mean, I like the actual head he's got, like the bear head, a lot because of the expression for the most part. But he does have a ridiculous... like Sonic helmet going on as well, which is also cool. But I think this is a rare situation where I wouldn't go with the helmet. I would go with that arrogant face. I would absolutely go with the arrogant face because look at it. It's great. Again, we can't get too far down the rankings without mentioning Sigismund, because Sigismund. Either way, someone will tell me I'm wrong. it's such a perfect model for this character. I feel like the detail of the chain from the wrist to the sword is really well done on this. It's obviously a big part of his character and his physical description, but it's been done quite delicately. Like, it's not too clunky. It doesn't look like it'd be a hindrance, which sometimes when it comes to things like that, it can look a little large, like a little overscaled in a way. That hasn't happened with this model. It's been done, I think, really, really well. The pose is, I mean, it's a good fighting pose. I like the added detail on the armor that you've got some of that ornamentation and a little bit of decoration to denote the importance, but a lot of it is also just functional. There's like a lot of like reinforcing studs and stuff all over it. The tabard as well, for the most part, I think is pretty decent. It feels a little severe. There's more movement in the tabard than is suggested by the rest of the model, but for me it's a pretty minor thing. Everything else about the model I really, really like. I think it just looks super good. Next up is Kharn, and I have to admit, Kharn will always have a place in my heart. Again, this one, the model is decent, don't get me wrong. The pose is a little stiff, not terribly, not massively. I think it could have just done with being a little more fluid, but I don't even know how necessarily. I think it's because it's a combination of actions. He's clearly just hacked the hand off that poor Raven Guard, which is, I mean, just don't stand in Kharn's way. That's the answer to that. But he's also running at the same time, which I think has led to a slightly awkward pose. I have to admit, I prefer the pose of his 40k model in a way. They are similar, which I really do appreciate. But overall, I think it's a really good representation again. I really do. The bare hands as opposed to having the actual gauntlets on is a really nice touch. Again, the chain work around the wrist to the axe is nice and fine. It's not too over the top. I think it suits him well because it's not massively over the top. It's not as decorated as Sigismund. It's not completely ostentatious like Eidolon. It's more plain, but that works for Kharn. I've never envisioned Kharn as a warrior who, adorns his armor with a bunch of trophies and stuff. At least not in the Horus Heresy. He is a very matter-of-fact character. I feel like the model really shows that off. It's good. It's good, I like it. At the moment, most of these are pretty much on par with each other. There's like mild preferences as to things that I really like about them, and then it's kind of, we're still at the point where a lot of these are very close in terms of how much I like them. Alexis Pollux, I just really like this model. I mean, the character's cool, but that is a really cool storm shield. I love the detail on that. The power fist with the underslung melter is massive and beefy. I feel like that is an abnormally large power fist as well. At some point I mean to get like that one next to just a standard one, just to see whether it is as hefty as it looks like it is. The kind of at-rest pose, as though taking a quick breather from punching the living hell out of a bunch of Iron Warriors, I think is really nicely done for this. Again, the armor isn't like massively plain necessarily. There is a little bit of ornamentation going on, but it's quite sparse, and a lot of it is sacrificed, I think, for, again, you've got like the reinforcing studs on the shoulder pad and stuff, which, yeah, it's a similar thing with Sigismund. I think it's just a really good representation of that character. It's been done super well. And I think that is one of the coolest shields you can get. Just flat out one of the coolest shields. Looks like it would weigh an absolute ton, though. Not that he's going to care, but still. Smack someone in the face with that, they'd know about it, wouldn't they? Okay, so Janetta Kroll, I think I think this would be pretty much up there with my absolute favourite models if it weren't for just a couple of small things. Just two nitpicks. That's all it is. While the pose, I think, is pretty decent, there is something about it where I don't know whether it's because both arms are out. It loses something. It feels like something needs to change. The body's fine, the legs are fine. I think you could either have the sword arm be out to the side, or you could have her other arm be out to the side, and it would look fine. Both arms being out to the side, she looks like she's been taken by surprise. The slight upward raise to the head, both arms being out, it doesn't look as commanding or as threatening as it should. It looks a little unprepared to me. That's the only way to put it. It's something that's bugged me about this model for ages. I don't even know what you would do to fix that, or even if it's something that needs fixing. It's obviously just a completely subjective thing. But there's just something it just strikes me as being not quite right about that pose. And it bugs me. It bugs me really badly, and I wish it didn't, because I like pretty much everything else about the model. The only other thing I'm not a fan of is the hair is a little rough in places. It's a little rough. It's not terrible. It doesn't look awful. There are certain angles, though, where it looks super blocky, and it's the same with the actual model itself. Like, depending on what direction you're looking at her from, the hair can look super lazy and not well sculpted. I don't think that is actually a problem, really. I think it's okay. It's just not been, I don't know, maybe not thought out that well in terms of like different angles and stuff. If you're looking at her face on, it's fine, but as soon as you get to certain points, it just doesn't look great. Those are two very minor nitpicks, to be honest, but they are preventing her from being like top 3, probably. It's just something about it just isn't right to me. Okay, we're into middling territory here. I know it's going to be controversial sticking these two down here in middling territory, but I do like them, don't get me wrong. I like both Loken and Abaddon, however you want to pronounce it. Pick and choose, go with whatever you like. I do like them both, but just not as much as a lot of the other stuff. That's pretty much all it comes down to. I don't really dislike anything about them. I think they both look decent, but just not as much is pretty much it. I think they're both decent representations of the characters. I have to admit, Loken didn't really look like what I had in my head. But then again, especially in this particular situation, with this matchup, and with this set, going up against Abaddon is going to be a bit tricky, because we've known what he's looked like for ages, and that's something whereby there's an unfair advantage for him, because I've known what Abaddon looks like for literally years and years and years and years and years, because he's had his pictures in stuff. He's a well-known face. So when it comes to that, it's like, well, he looks exactly how I was expecting, because there is so much reference material already available before the Horus Heresy even existed as an idea of a full book series, that how would you not just do what they did, which is make him look like himself? Loken is not what I thought he would look like, which is a little bit jarring. Then again, I don't even know if I really know what I think he looks like, just not necessarily that, which is a weird thing to say, but I know what I mean. There is a good amount of detail on these. They are nice sculpts, they are good models. The cloak on Loken is, I think, really nicely done. It's nice and voluminous. Voluminous. There's a lot of it, but it's not like thick or like rough, or it doesn't look a big chunk of crap stuck on his back. It looks legitimately like a cloak, which you may think, why is he pointing that out? You will find out why I'm pointing that out. Overall decent, just not my favourites, you know. Now, Armorless Diner he's fine. I like the armour a lot. The armour looks cool. I mean, he's Alpha Legion, of course the armour looks cool. There are things that I do kind of like about it, but the overall, I don't know, he just feels a bit boring. That's the only way I can put it. It's weird because I like the armour. I like the armour a lot. I think the armour looks great. The Thunderhammer looks really cool. The Power Sword looks good. The cloth that he's got is nicely done, especially the cape. That's a quality cape. I like the variation on the backpack there, where it's got the antenna and like the additional equipment. I like the individual elements of this model, but put them all together and he just looks a bit dull. And I can't really explain why. I don't know whether it's something to do with the base. I don't think it's that. I think that kind of hero pose, for some reason, doesn't suit him. It feels like he needs to be in motion, like he needs to be doing something, but he's just not. He's just standing there, and it just doesn't. I don't know. It's a weird one. It's a weird one. I like the individual elements, but it's just not an inspiring model. Like, I don't look at that and go, oh man, I want to paint that. I want to own that. All the others that we've looked at so far, you know, regardless of little issues here and there that I've got with them, I want them. I want to have them. I want to own them. I just don't get that with this one. It just doesn't do anything for me, which is weird because, as I say, I kind of like all the individual elements. It's just a bit flat, I guess. Now, I'm throwing in, now, Magistus Aemon, Aemon Amarth, excellent. I like this model, but the issue that I have with it, that kind of sort of kills it for me a bit, is this cloak. Because that, oh dear me, from the front, good. Maybe a bit too leaning forwards. I think that's another thing that I would criticise about this. The books and the parchments off to the side, great. The decoration on the armour, really nice. Really like that. The staff is cool as hell. He's got a decent face on him as well. I think that's a good face. The big old wing thing sticking out of the shoulder pad, a little bit awkward, a little bit clunky, but I can live with it. As soon as you turn him round, though, you just get this absolute thick mass of cloak, and that it just doesn't look right at all to me. That it's so heavy and dense, and like you can see it's been painted in such a way to try and give it the impression of, you know, white on one side and dark green on the other. Look how much dark green is going on. Look at it. It's because it's just a big old chunk of resin. It's just a massive chunk of resin, and it just kills it. Just kills it for me. And it's a shame because I like pretty much everything else about it. I think the rest of it is really good, but it's just too much. It is just too much. It looks awkward. It doesn't look real. It doesn't look even remotely real. It looks like, I'm just going to say it looks cheap. It looks cheap, and it's not cheap is the issue. If it was a cheap model, then maybe I could be a bit more understanding about parts of it looking cheap. But everything else on it is super well done, super well sculpted, looks really good. Even things like the sleeves on the cloak look decent. Like, you've got this nice kind of rippled cloth around the arms, and then you turn him round and you just got this bloody massive lump of God knows what sticking out of the back of him. It's just disappointing. It just wrecks me. Just wrecks it. Wrecks it for me. Absolutely kills any enthusiasm for that model. Right, onto this shower of absolute dickheads. So, package deal, Erebus and Corphaeron. 2 arseholes for the price of 2 arseholes. And I'll be honest, these used to be pretty high up the list. They were some of the, if I remember correctly, some of the earlier characters to be released for the Horus Heresy. And there are still elements that I really like about them. And I think, actually, if it was just Corphaeron, he wouldn't be as low down as he is. But they're a package deal, and so they're being treated as a package deal. Erebus drags this down badly, because I used to quite like Erebus. I used to think Erebus looked pretty decent, and then Sardu Lyak came along, and Erebus looked like someone had drawn like Hot Topic designs all over his armour. He went from looking like, oh, first Chaos Sorcerer, oh, nice, to, that looks, for a start, that looks more 40k than Horus Heresy now, and also, what's the obsession with winged skeletons? Why has he got that on almost every plate of art? I mean, he's got it on his shin, he's got it on his knee pad, he's got it on the thigh area, he's got it on his chest. The number of skulls of the other greave is a bit much. I realised that Erebus's armour looks ornamented for the sake of looking ornamented. It looks ornamented because he's Erebus. He needs to look scary and chaos. But it doesn't look like it serves a purpose. It just looks like he's got terrible taste. Whereas that to me is infinitely more intimidating than Erebus. The stuff on Lyak looks like it serves a purpose, like it is there for a reason. Like his armor's been modified to make him more powerful, to make him better at what he does, to curry more favour, essentially. It's more utilitarian, I guess, but there is still that kind of like extreme sense of chaos that you get from the helm, from the spikes on the power pack. The weird augmentations to the armour look like they serve a purpose, and they also look like you would struggle to understand what that purpose is. And I think a lot of the lack of kind of engraving and stuff on the majority of his armour is offset by the staff that he's wielding, because that looks like some sort of awful relic from God knows when. There's strips of flayed skin hanging off it. It looks otherworldly. Erebus doesn't look anywhere near as threatening, and I feel like he should. I feel like he should be as threatening and as intimidating, but he just isn't. His armour doesn't look like it's been modified for any purpose other than, I like skeletons and wings, so can we put skeletons and wings on it? His staff is very word bearers, but again, it's almost like too simplistic in a way. It doesn't look like a threatening relic or a threatening weapon. It looks like a stick with a book on it with a skull on top of the book, and that's because that's what it is. He just, I don't know, he just doesn't look all that. And he's Erebus, and he should look all that. He should look terrifying and, like he has the kind of influence that he has. But he just doesn't. He just doesn't. And I think it's entirely down to Lyak. I think Lyak just killed Erebus for me in terms of how much I like the model. Now, Corphaeron, I think, actually, in fairness, is pretty decent. I like the Terminator armor. I like the lightning claws that he's got. They're a bit grim. They're a bit threatening. The face I don't like. And I don't think it's necessarily anything to do with me not really liking bare heads even. I just don't think it looks great. I know he's an old man, but he looks on the verge of collapse just permanently. Maybe, I guess actually it is fair to give him that appearance thinking about it, but I don't know, it just doesn't fit all that well. He always seemed more intimidating in my head. He just looks like a grumpy old man in there, and it's not ideal. The rest of the armour, I think, is pretty good. The book on the shoulder is too small. I never thought I'd say that an ornamentation is too small, but it's too small. It's Core Pharaon. He needs to have a massive book on his shoulder if he's going to have one. Not the little book of calm that he's got, plastered on the top there. Yeah, it's overall decent, but there's just little bits here and there that I'm just not that big a fan of. I mean, as far as I remember, the armour is like, it's kind of modified because he is not a Space Marine. He had like longevity treatments and like enhancements and was augmented, but he was way too old to go through the process of becoming a Space Marine. So he's essentially just a slightly stronger human still at the start of the Horus Heresy anyway. Obviously, with the accepting of Chaos powers, he becomes something considerably more powerful than that, but there is, a reason for it looking distinctly non-standard, but there are just aspects to it that look a bit clunky and a bit strange. Like the weird servos sticking through the knees look a bit off. Same thing with the wrists. There's like extra detail there that doesn't feel like there needs to be. If it kind of feels like he looks a bit different, so we need to make it look a bit different, as opposed to it actually doing anything. So yeah, a bit shaky, those two, but they're both dickheads, so who cares? And we're down to the last two here, which we're probably gonna blast through pretty quick because we have Knight Errant Tylos Rubio, who just looks boring. I'm sorry. I don't know what else to tell you. He just does not look exciting. His sword is massively thick for a start. What the hell is going on there? It is just not an interesting model to me at all. Garrow is an interesting model. That is not an interesting model. It just does nothing for me. It just leaves me cold. The sword really is ridiculously thick, though. What is going on there? I haven't even really noticed that before. You're not going to cut anyone with that. You're going to end up just bludgeoning them to death, aren't you? Yeah, it's not even bad. I wouldn't even say it's bad. It's not a bad model. I just don't care. Like that's pretty much all it boils down to. It's not like shockingly crap or anything. It's not like oh, what a terrible job they've done. It's just dull. It's not interesting. Yeah. Could be worse, though. Could be Val Redblade, who I've just grown to really dislike. I've grown to really dislike this model. I can't even remember what I initially thought about this when it was first revealed, but God, I just don't. It just doesn't look very good. I mean, I don't think the paint job's helping. I'll be totally honest. I really don't like full-on criticising paint jobs of stuff, because I'm no pro painter myself. I'm not very good, but there's some parts of this model that just feel like Shortcut City. Like the axe, there's been a bit of non-metallic metal attempt on the edge of the blade there, but you can't just slap 3 colours on it and call it a day and be like, hey, that's fine, that'll do. It's literally just grey, bit of green, bit of white, bit of green, bit of grey. That's it. There's been nothing else done to that, and it looks rough. It looks rough and rushed. Same thing with the cloak. The cloak looks like it was just painted one colour and then given a big old wash or something and then left. The back of it is way darker than the front, but not like where the actual shadows would lie. Like, why is that? I don't know. The paint job doesn't help it at all, to be honest. Maybe that's why I dislike it so much. Maybe if I saw one that was painted a bit differently, I hate to use the word better. Well, it doesn't make any sense though, because some parts of this look really good. Like the fur, the wolf's head looks decent. The gems are okay. The gun looks all right. There's a nice bit of work on that skull there, and the spiked like shin there is pretty decently weathered. I think the problem that I've got with this actually is it feels like there's a lot going on, but not in the right places. There's like he's got the skulls, but they're under the cloak, and they're attached via rope instead of being like properly strung up somewhere. There's a bit of like like teeth and runes going on around the neck, but they look a bit low. They look quite low detail, which isn't great. Which is weird because the one around the shin looks like there is a decent amount of detail on there. You've got a skull over that leg, but then one of the arms is almost completely devoid of any decoration. I just feels a bit confused. The bit around the face looks like a porthole. I don't know. And that wolf head on the side there is not great. I just have grown to really dislike it. Just really not. It just doesn't do anything for me at all. I can't even really explain why. It's just everything feels a bit off. Everything just feels a bit off with that one, which is a shame, really. Yeah, it just doesn't scratch the itch. Anyway, let's go back to Sevatar and finish there. That is the non-Primarchs from the character series. I didn't cover the two Admech because we covered them when we talked about the Admech, so it'd be silly to go back and do that again. But yeah, that's where we are with those so far. As more are added, I'm sure we can do supplementary videos in the future to add any newer additions to the character series. But yeah, that's the ranking. That's the ranking. Sevatar comes in first, and Haval Redblade all the way at the bottom, right down there. Sorry, Space Wolf. I love the Horus Heresy Space Wolves, class, but not that one. Thank you very much for watching. Let me know. I'm sure you will. Let me know how much of that you agree with. Probably very little. In the meantime, feel free to click all the things: Patreon, video, subscribe, all that stuff. Click it if you like, don't click if you don't want to. And as always, there's an affiliate link in the description for Element Games, which you can use to support the channel if you would like. I leave it entirely up to you. Thank you very much for watching. I'll see you next time.